Welcome to TriMet 101. Today we're going to be talking about this small debate that's been going around the last few years about electric buses. Should we be using battery electric buses or electric trolleybuses? This video will hopefully put that to rest. I'll also delve further in and give you my opinion, as I always do, about where I see all of these buses in the TriMet system, because yes, both sides of the issue can actually come out as a winner for certain situations. I'll explain. Firstly, let me introduce to you the two modes that we're talking about. A battery electric bus is just a diesel bus, but without the diesel. It has a battery inside that drives an electric motor to move the wheels of the bus. This battery must be kept charged in some way to help the bus keep going as the day goes on. This can either be through overhead charging, of which there is, I believe, a worldwide, or there is some sort of standard for overhead bus chargers. And these can be implemented at all transit centers or whatever. Or you can opt for the long-range bus option, where you plug the bus in overnight, charge it completely, and run it on that full charge next day without the overhead chargers. TriMet is trying both of these out. An electric trolleybus is also an electric bus, but instead of a battery on board to power the electric motor and the wheels and all that, a trolleybus has two arms that touches a set of wires overhead, and that is what powers the bus. Some, in fact most, older models of trolleybuses don't have batteries at all, but some of the newer ones do have batteries in them. We are going to talk about the huge benefits of that here in a moment. Excuse the hailstorm that's happening right now, but you may have already made up your mind on what option you prefer, battery electric or electric trolleybus. I will go over the pros and cons to both of these, and I don't think one should be chosen over the other entirely and just completely remove one option altogether. Also, be sure to watch this whole video because my final opinion might not be what you expect. So, some examples for pros of trolleybuses. Well, they're lighter because they don't have big old batteries weighing them down. They work much better on hills. They have infinite range, so you don't have to worry about batteries going dead. And they are also a proven technology. Seattle has been successfully, pretty much continuously running trolleybuses since the early 1940s. Cons include not being able to pass other trolleybuses, dewirements, detours, power outages, and ugly wires. These types of buses also require additional training for how to operate them, because wire switches and things like that are a bit of a learning curve, with having to accelerate through the switch properly and knowing how not to dewire the bus. Also, in case the poles come down, you need to be able to know how to raise the poles back up to get them to touch the wires. So again, learning curve. However, 3 of those cons can be solved with a battery in the trolleybus. So it's kind of a hybrid of both. But it doesn't need to be a big battery. Only about enough for maybe 10 miles or so. So in case of any situation where you might need to run off wire to detour or whatever, you can just lower your poles, drive around to the next bus stop, and then get out of the bus and rewire your bus. Some buses, although I'm not sure how good it is, also have automatic rewiring, but I've heard that that isn't super reliable. And I believe on New Flyers trolleybuses, if a dewirement happens where one of the poles comes down or whatever, it'll switch over to battery power automatically, and you'll be able to rewire at the next stop. Also, the ugly wire spaghetti, yum, can be solved by just dealing with it. We have wires all over the place. We have power lines and phone lines existing for well over a century now, and I don't hear people complaining about, oh, the power lines are ugly. Because they're just a part of society now, and we just deal with it. this could be the same sort of solution. So do I think trolleybuses are the way of the future? Absolutely not. No. They are not the way of the future. They are not superior to battery electric buses, and here's why. It's just simply they're not as flexible, even if they have batteries in them. It just reduces the flexibility a lot. Suppose you wanted to run a shuttle route. Now that's going to be, a shuttle to fill in trains. Are you really going to put up overhead wires for this twice-a-year event? And also, wires. Wires. That's physical infrastructure, and a whole lot of it. For one bus line, that's a lot of wires. Now imagine your whole entire system of New York City with 8 million people, almost 9 million people or whatever. Imagine that all being on overhead electrical wires. That's a lot of infrastructure you gotta maintain. Well, you gotta maintain hundreds or possibly 1,000 buses, maybe thousands of bus shelters. Well, now your maintenance crew's also gonna have to keep up all those wires. Whereas straight battery electric buses can run anywhere, and they can detour anywhere for any reason at any time. It adds that much more flexibility, and instead of 10 miles battery range or whatever, you could have 150. New Flyers long-range buses are more like 200 miles. That's better. Also, a bus could be transferred from one bus garage to another, or to some repair shop somewhere. You could just drive it there. As long as there's electric chargers, or as long as your battery has enough range, you're good to go. Imagine a bus transfer takes place on the interstate. Now you have to drive a trolley bus on the interstate? Come on. That's going to look ridiculous. Wires above a lane of interstate, and there's this little bus driving on there? No, electric buses are the solution in that case. And I absolutely understand that everything has its trade-offs. Everything. So, what are the trade-offs for electric buses? I've actually done a video already talking about just that, but in short, pretty much all of those problems that we currently have with electric buses will be fixed. And hopefully in the not-too-distant future. Stuff like mining materials for the batteries and questionable labor laws and muddy stuff like that. Sure, that goes into the manufacturing of battery electric buses, but if that's going to be your basis of the argument as to not use battery electric buses, then you might want to stop using your phone, because all of those silicon chips in your phone, yeah, those also have the same questionable labor laws and stuff like that, and everybody carries a phone in their pocket. I have a feeling electric buses are going to be on every road despite how the world works. Now you might ask, what about buses catching fire? That has happened before. Well, the thing that causes the buses to go up in flames are the batteries. Which, yeah, that is an issue, but guess what else also has batteries and can absolutely catch fire? A diesel bus. It's kind of an even playing field here. Sure, electric buses have bigger and better, larger batteries, but diesel buses already have batteries. And combustible fuel. So, yeah, trade-offs with everything, like I said. Really, the only way to solve this issue would be to not include a battery in the vehicle at all, which is impossible. Oh, wait, but an electric trolleybus doesn't need a battery, right? It can touch the wires and get its power from the overhead wires. Well, there you go. Trolleybuses for the win. Except, no. We just talked about it. If you do that, that introduces all those issues of now you can't detour around anything, and that reduces flexibility down to zero. You better stay where those wires are, otherwise you are in trouble. And if you're still unsure of which side to pick, electric trolleybus or battery electric bus, here's a great video in the cards, I'll put it up in a second, from Electronics Mastermind EEV blog, where he talks about this very issue. Two things about this video though. Number one, he calls those trolleybuses with batteries built in autonomous trolleybuses, which I think is a bit misleading of a name. It's not autonomous, it's not driving itself. It's autonomous in the sense that if it disconnects from the wires, it will switch to battery power. A bit of a misleading name, but if you hear that in there, then that's where that's coming from. He also makes a big deal about the wires being ugly. I personally don't have an issue with this. Like I've said before, I see power lines and electrical wires everywhere out on every street around here. There's electrical infrastructure everywhere, and I don't think twice about it. I ignore it completely. The thought of, man, there are a lot of wires, or man, those never enter my mind, so I don't make a big deal about it. And I also don't hear other people complaining about it. But anyway, there's the card for his video. I'll also remember that at the end of the videos you can tap the screen and go up there and see what videos I put in the card, so if you want to wait until the end of the video before watching it, then there you go. So now time for my opinions. Buy battery electric buses. Goodbye. No, wait a minute. Yes, I do think battery electric buses are ultimately the way of the future just because of their flexibility and no needing to add wires and all of that sort of stuff. It's basically as seamless of a transition as you can get from a diesel bus to an electric bus. But I mentioned a pro earlier for trolleybuses that is an actual drawback from battery electric buses. Electric trolleybuses have incredible hill climbing ability. That's why San Francisco has held on to them for so long. So when you're touching overhead electric wires, you are directly connecting to that source of power. You can use as much power as you want going up that hill with infinite range. With a battery electric bus climbing those hills, that is going to suck out a lot of power from that battery to push the vehicle up the hill at a reasonable rate.
Next stop, Bell Street.
But there is a serious mega limitation here, and it's that the trolley wires are not compatible with overhead catenary wires, like what we have for the Max and streetcar. If you've ever seen things on those e-highways where they want to make electric trucks for, like, shipping trucks, you'll notice that they have two wires, just like an electric trolley bus, but they're not trolley wires, they're catenary wires. And on the top of the truck, they have two little pantographs touching the wires. Those would be compatible with normal catenary. It's all the same system, like what the Max or Portland streetcar uses. I'm not sure if any of these sort of buses, catenary buses, or whatever, have actually been made. I'm pretty sure prototypes have been made, but I don't know if there are any electric bus companies actually making them. If you do a quick search on Google Images for like catenary electric buses or something like that, I think there's like one rendering from a certain company of one, but the rest of them just look like the more old school trolley buses. So New Flyer or somebody, get on it. Start making some overhead catenary trolley buses. I really think that would be more useful for modern rail systems that use catenary wires, which are way better for a whole host of reasons than the old school trolley wires. And it would also increase the compatibility by that much, being able to actually use it and interline it with existing rail infrastructure. So if I were on the planning team at TriMet, what routes would I put the catenary wires or trolley wires on? 18, 51, 63, maybe the Markham Hill routes. Basically the routes that get canceled first on the snowy and icy days. And this is coming from fairly personal experience. I haven't driven a 30-foot bus on these routes, but I have been on the 51 fairly recently, and that thing friggin' struggled on those hills. Here's a short clip of the 51 really struggling. an electric trolleybus would not do that. So my feelings on this whole thing are kind of mixed, literally. I would still think that, I don't know, probably 95% of TriMet I would see if I were doing it this way. Still, something like 95% of the system would be fully battery electric. But there are special use cases on the hilly routes where electric trolleybuses do have a distinct advantage, and is the reason why, like I say, San Francisco has held onto them for so long. They had to come up with solutions to overcome their hilly streets. Alright, well, now it's time for me to go to Seattle and film some shots of electric trolleybuses in action, because we don't have any in the Portland area. And I'll include some clips of that in here as the video goes on, as I'm sure you saw. But anyways, that'll be it for this video, and I'll see you next time.